PR Connections Radio presents.
Did you know your clothing could help balance your body's pH levels? Our cutting-edge fabric technology naturally promotes optimal pH balance, helping you feel energized, refreshed, and at your best every day. Use promo code PRTalk for more info. Tap the link in the description or contact our experts at 702-445-9488 to learn more.
Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to the PR Connections Radio, another episode of Liberating Menopause. I'm your host, Lisa Vasquez. I'm excited today for this talk. As I always talk about women in the workplace, menopause, understanding foundations, small symptoms, signs that could actually grow and congest the body later and really accumulate into something more hazardous to our health as we mature in our lives. So today we're talking about presenteeism. And I don't know if that's a familiar title to you, but it's all about how we all go to work. I mean, in some cases, and we're overworked, overloaded. A lot happened last night, and now we have to get up and follow through and get to the job. And we have so much on our mind. So presenteeism is kind of being there, but you're really not. You can't call in because that's, an absenteeism. But so you want to be present, but functioning and getting through the day has been complicated. And this has happened a lot. In the year of 2024, presenteeism affected 41.2% of employees. And, I'm going to tell you a little story of mine in a moment, but it's just some fascinating that how often this is all overlooked in the workplace. This issue that could make it made for a compelling podcast for me today to bring this up, because when it came across my desk and I seen the words presenteeism, I mean, women in menopause, women in peripause, we go through a lot of these issues of where we're not sleeping. And one of those moments that I always have to relate this back to my old neighborhood, working in the field in medical system, in mammography, breast health. This is where all my stories come from. They're all real stories, real women. And so by relating back to those stories, this is how, when I present myself today, I am presenting and representing all those women who have spoken to me in private, behind those closed doors, hearing all these things. So when you see me in present, I am totally not alone, because there's so many voices in my head that speak with me and to me, so that I can make sure that I amplify the voices of this pain that had occurred. And this is women that don't sleep. There's so many women that would come to me after doctor's checkup again, or, just time for their annual screenings, and they really had to drag themselves out of bed because honestly, they didn't sleep all night. I would hear that, and, you would see it on them. You would see how tired they were. You would see how the sadness, because, I don't know how often any of you out there really experience this, but when you get up in that middle of the night and the whole world is sleeping and quiet, and you just look around and you see like, wow, because this problem's happening to you. Not once or twice I had to go through that. So that's why I understand the moment of darkness when you're here and you're all alone, because my husband's sleeping, the dogs are sleeping, the whole family's sleeping, the world is quiet. Even if you go outside, nobody's awake, right? So then you have to try to work through this because you're awake. And so one of the big things that they do say is, if you did get into this, and I know that a lot of women go through this moment at 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning because of hormonal fluctuations and changes, and sometimes they wake up, and it's a startling wake up, and because here you were sleeping, and all of a sudden something like an alarm goes off on you, and that's just kind of the body clock's a little off, right? Or anxiety has kicked in, something has taken over, and you wake up. And, again, that moment is very for me, it was kind of scary to be up like that. It wasn't a comfortable feeling. So when I would see, when I was talking with this woman and seeing her, and there was many women, it wasn't one, but this one specifically, she really touched me because of how, she hadn't slept for days. And this is the anxiety, the fluctuation, the different shifts that she had to rotate through. So coming back to try to find her default was hard pattern to find. So she stayed up and still had to go to work. And so she was one of those presenteeisms, she was there, she's pushing through it. You have to pay the bills, things have to happen. And so she would make it through the day, but it wasn't easy. And this goes on a lot, all the time. I mean, the workplace is very common for this. Unfortunately, recently I was speaking with one of my friends, and a plumber that she knew, unfortunately, he knew he wasn't feeling good. And the sad thing was he went to work anyway, and unfortunately he fell off the ladder, injured his neck. And as he laid there, he thought of that. Now, she didn't know I was about to be talking about this episode with presenteeism. So to hear that live conversation from a male side, he knew. I mean, he knew he was sick. He knew he wasn't feeling good. But, we all want to stay dedicated to the job and we want to get there. And of course, again, the financial side of things, or just to get out and be at work because you really enjoy where you're at and you don't want to miss a day. That's how I was all the time. I didn't want to miss a day because there was so many women that would walk into my life and give me some type of fuel to carry on in my life. And so if I missed a day, I missed out on 25 conversations. And then who's taking care of my women? That was my other concern. I want to be there because I know my special touch. I know what happens when I'm with women and our conversations grow into a friendship. So, I would always want to be there. And so here's one episode of my life when here I am in this year. Suddenly, so I'm at work, I'm in my room, and outside my door is a little trafficy corridor because there's other modalities around me, MRI, ultrasounds next door, bone densities down the hall. So there's a little traffic in this hallway, and here I am in my room, and I'm looking at my computer, and all of a sudden something hit me. I mean, literally, like hit me in the throat. And I was like, what the hell is that? I didn't understand. I was like, well, wait a minute. Because the way it hit, and now the squirming, I mean, it was crazy to feel whatever this virus was. And to this day, honestly, it was never really diagnosed as what it was, but the illness that came with that. So here I am. This was at 3:30. I'm about to be picked up at 4:45. And I'm feeling this like, wow, what was that? It's growing, whatever's happening, it's festering. I could feel it in my body, and I'm very in tune with my body. So I knew that something has, penetrated the camp, and it's not feeling good. And sometimes, we have that instinct. We know when we're about to get sick, but it was the way this thing hit me. So here I am, 4:45, I get picked up. My husband picks me up, and, we always kiss and say hello. And I said, no, not this time. Don't do that, because I think I'm getting sick. I could feel it in my throat. Well, he didn't listen, and he did. He kissed me. So then, I mean, honestly, it really turned into kind of like the kiss of death. I became sick the next day. So that was a Monday. This was Tuesday. I went down. I mean, completely down. I mean, I couldn't get up. I mean, I was so sick. Now, to understand that in my company where I was working at, when you call in, it's held against you. It's a mark against you because it's an unscheduled absentee. I mean, it's crazy because the structure of having to work in a place that's very strict on this. I mean, back in the day when I signed up and came into the work field, you had 3 weeks off, 10 holidays or what have you. You had like 7 sick days and 2 personal days, and this was like common for a medical field and getting a job. So now, as the years have progressed, changes in the season and the way businesses are run in the medical field, you cannot really call in. And when you do, it's held against you. It's like a score against you. So of course you don't want to do that. And you really have to train yourself to stay straight and be well, because again, you become presenteeism, because there were a lot of people in my workplace that had to work even though you can see they're sick. Older women who had to push through it after they had a heart attack and had to have a heart surgery. I mean, when I look at this and think about that, I'm like, wow. So here I am. I had to call in on that Tuesday, not knowing how long I was going to be off, because you don't know, right? But I know I'm sick as hell. So the next day, my husband goes down. Now he's sick as hell. I mean, and both of us, I mean, there's just both of us. So we're both dying together. I mean, literally, I'm telling you, I've never felt that sick in my life. And I don't get sick often at all. I mean, the last time before that, I can't even remember. So that's why when this happened, it was crazy. And so now he's down. So this is Wednesday. So now it's Thursday. So both of us are down. And so Friday, we have to try to make it to urgent care. We have to get there, but we have to get there. So literally this place is only 7 minutes away. So him and I, we got into the car. As bad as we looked, we drove down there. 7 minutes, took forever. When we get there, they put us in a room because they could see us looking bad. I sat on the bed that they examine you on, and my husband's over there in the corner on a chair with his head down. The room is dark. We didn't want the lights on. Doctor walks in like, wow, so they didn't know exactly what's going on either. So, labs are being taken, all these things. There was no medication given at the time. And honestly, again, I tried to look it up to see what the diagnosis was, but it kind of really wasn't a specific one. But with the illness that we had, it was really bad. I was sick the whole month of February. This happened in February. So for those, February's 28 days, right? I was sick. Now they're calling me from work. I'm in fear that, oh no, I'm going to lose my job. I mean, I'm sick, right? What am I supposed to do? And then you have that FMLA that's only going to save the spot for you. So at this point now, they're putting me on that. And, now you're in fear of risking, thinking, oh, damn, now they got to save my job, really, and I'm sick. I mean, there's no way to get there. But at this point, so now let's say it's like the 5th week and I was sick, but now I had to go to work. And honestly, that was really to show face, because either they didn't really believe I was that sick. I don't know. I honestly, I had the doctor's notes. I mean, everything was there. I was sick. So I had to go to work that day. And I got dressed, put the uniform on. I get there, and all I could do is make it to, I come in a back door, so I could only make it to the front desk. And then I just stood there. I'm boiling. I'm red as crazy red. I'm crying because I'm so weak and I'm sick as a dog. And here I am. And what good am I going to do? I mean, I wasn't going to be any good. So I had to let that boss see me. So then that boss called the big boss. And then, of course, they sent me home. And here I was. I got to go back home. So I was sick for another 2 more weeks before this whole thing cleared out. And there was nothing that was related to this. There wasn't a COVID time, so it had nothing to do with that. But, it was a pretty whole body illness of, fever, virus, cough, weakness. I mean, loss of energy, totally. I mean, very rare could we even talk to each other, let alone try to get up and make something. I think the first things that we reached for that actually started to recover us was ginger tea. That was the first thing. And my husband's not somebody that's going to be drinking ginger tea, but ginger root is really good for your stomach and things like that. So we started with that, and little by little we started. And that was kind of the energy and the fuel that we had to do in spoonfuls, because it wasn't easy. By the time we really started to plump up a little bit, I think it was Campbell's chicken noodle soup, and we sat there and just loved that little can. We split it, but at least we were able to start eating, and it was just an amazing recovery, but it was a very scary illness. And then again, that presenteeism, going to work, having to show that, oh man, I'm so sick, but here I am, and I'm not going to do you any good. So FMLA kicked in to save my job. But on the other hand of that story, the cool thing was my husband. Oh my gosh, he has like the coolest job. And, he has where they do respect your recovery in illness, where he's got time off. I mean, he doesn't get deemed if he has to call in. He has he's been there for a long time. So the amount of days he always had off, I could never accumulate it in my PTO hours. By the time I accumulated even 24 hours, I wanted to take those days off because, adding those PTO hours, they take forever. So you have to be really strict with yourself and disciplined, or, you want to just get out and be out. And even though those days weren't really used to have fun, because lots of times you have doctor's appointments, businesses, things to do. And, those are the only PTO hours you're accumulated. So, but on his side of things, he has the FMLA where they would pay him while he's sick. And as I said, with the respect to being ill, they actually worry about your recovery and cover you for that. So there's the big difference in the contrast in what I had to go through compared to what he had to go through. And he was off about a month more than I was, which, that was okay for him because he had that really cool job. But really speaking about this, bringing it to your attention because the workloads, the pressure, the job insecurities, the difficulty of accessing a well-being initiative at that time. I mean, you're weak. And women in menopause and going through the change, these are, again, that's why they're uncaptured illnesses, because sometimes you just can't really name it or title it. And so to be saying that, you're not sleeping, what kind of things can we do to change those habits? I mean, some of the things that in our lives, because of technology today, we need to be looking at, that caffeine intake, because how long it lasts and what time it's going to shut off in your body. And is it going to be relaxation? I knew this one woman who told me she had like about 8 cups of coffee all the time. And I was like, wow, I didn't know where you actually gauge your real energy from that energy. How do you separate that, And so eventually she told me she was going to change that habit, but I was really surprised to know that somebody needed that much fuel all the time. And she wasn't a real busy woman, but she loved her coffee and caffeine. So understanding the intakes of that caffeine and how it affects us, that's a really big point. Next thing you know, we have that technology with the Wi-Fi in your room, having those magnetic fields circulating around us. And, that is a lot of compelling energy that keeps your energy flowing. So that's why they ask that, you shut off all the Wi-Fi, keep those things away from you, put your phone in a separate room or, away from you, especially now that we have 5G, which is so much stronger in its network of how that ranges. That's really important. That blue light, shutting off that blue light, taking it, or, always making sure, again, you have those blue light glasses, especially if you're going to be up at nighttime looking at that screen, so that it's not making contact and connecting, letting the brain think that you're starting your day instead of ending your day. So those are another common things that help that upset the flow, because it throws off our melatonin, right? When melatonin wants to kick in, all of a sudden we kick it out because we extend the time on whatever we're doing, mostly on computers. That's the biggest thing that takes over. And just trying to have that quiet time, because just talking about meditation, asking for somebody to take that moment and silence themselves, that's a really hard moment in life to capture, because so much is happening, and it really takes a discipline. It really takes a focus to be able to sit down and just sit there. I mean, here you are just sitting there trying to, meditate and be calm. And next thing you know, it's only been a minute, but it felt like forever. And this is the training and the calming and the changing of what, needs to be done for us to really train the body to silence it and meditate on it and quiet it, because there's so much that happens to a woman, especially a woman in her life, especially with these growing fields, how we're developing in the workplace, and how, I was talking about caregiving and the senior cares that kick in when you're not expecting that. You could be an empty nester and suddenly now somebody's parents are moving in, or it could be your neighbor asking you to take care of their parents while they're away, or things like that. You just never know what's going to come up in your day that's going to interrupt what you're usual day would look like. And in women, there's always a surprise. We're always nurturing something. There's something coming up, and we're always ready to do it because of our nurturing component that we carry, because we want to be dedicated. We want to be there to help. And so there was a study in the National Bureau of Economic Research that found that the average productivity lost while working sick is around 20%. And the presenteeism is highly correlated with absenteeisms. So there's a big number that really does affect us. And, having that depending on where you're working, how that works for your call-ins and things like that. And women, when we're in those menopausal states, that's a fluctuating change that happens all the time. So, it's not like you could call in every day for that. There are days you have to deal with it and get through it. But it's really when you can focus on yourself to help change some of the lifestyles that you're living to help bring in that relaxation, because that sleep pattern is so important. Brain-wise, that fog, that walking, delirium, because sometimes that's how we are. We get up and we're going, even though, we're not ready to be there yet, but we have to be there. So just understanding that presenteeism is a real issue. It is really overlooked. And there's so many people around us that you wouldn't even suspect are present, but not really there. There's so many things on women and, happening in life. I was considering the women who return from maternity leave. They come back after they've had their 6 to 8 weeks off, whatever it is. I think it's 6 weeks now. I think it's dropped a little bit, which I don't understand that side of things, because after a woman has just had her first baby, she's just learned how to go through all these motions of getting up in the middle of the night, putting the baby to sleep. The body's calling her when the baby's thirsty, if she's breastfeeding. So, she's going to work. All these different things are taking over, and now she has to go to work and function as though none of that even happened. And so that's another big presenteeism, because she really does have a lot of recovery to go through, because the body's still healing so much in her abdominal areas. And, besides her mental state and really organizing a new schedule, because she's going to work and then she has to go home, they have to stop somewhere to pick up the baby maybe, so the traffic of getting off here, going there, getting back on, having to go get the groceries, now getting home, settling it all down, the rest of the family comes home. There is so much that happens. So we're not always present. And it's very important to really focus more on trying to quiet the body and bring it into a more restful state by spoiling yourself in this way, by really trying to shut off that TV and go into that quiet time at 8 or 9 o'clock, getting yourself at least into the bed. Doesn't mean you have to fall asleep right away, but at least you've already let the body know, okay, I'm already down, and just to bring that stress level down and start lowering it and let it all start to, come into that la land place where, that's where the real healing takes place in our bodies. So that's what this episode, sharing these, things that are so important, because women in the workplace, we go through so much, and a lot of this hasn't been acknowledged in that way of understanding that a lot of hormonal fluctuations and changes occur, and we are the ones that have to make through it. We've always done it, we always do it. But at this time now, somebody needs to recognize, that's why they're making mother rooms and things like that, where we have more time to rest, mental rest, because there's so much happening in a day, especially at work, depending, again, like I said, where you're working at, the medical field, all fields in corporate. Going into different meetings, nonstop, flying from here to there, coming back, getting on the phone, you're in different time zones, and now you come back to your main time zone, but now you got to catch up with all that sleep. All these things are really something to focus yourself in, to settle yourself down and regroup and understand that you may be pushing it now and it feels okay, and that's okay because your body's young, right? I mean, say you're in the field and you're 40 years old, and so yeah, you still have the energy to do that. But by using all that up and taking advantage of yourself instead of really bringing yourself into a quiet, more relaxed state to nourish yourself, that nourishment is what I'm looking to bring to you, because that's what's going to keep you going as you walk more toward the doors of retirement, because you really want to be that whole person. You don't want to be broken. You don't want to have all this lack of sleep showing up on you, really taking a toll on your body, your appetite. Sometimes people eat at different times of the day. I mean, people, like I said, there's different shifts that they have to switch back and forth to. I was never good on a 3 to 11 shift because I just would sleep the whole time until it was time to get up to go to work. I didn't even know how people do that. But then I do have a cousin who works that shift and she loves it, and she gets up at 6 in the morning and she's doing her thing and, goes to work. And I was like, wow, that one's just not for me. I like the 11 to 7. That was cool. But then when you wake up, when you get home at 7, there's two different patterns that you have to figure out to sleep on. Do you go to sleep right when you get home? And for people who have children and stuff, hopefully they're in school, but there's things that have to be done. I didn't have that situation, but it's where do you find? You go to sleep now. What if you're not tired? You're on that second wind, so you're still awake. And then can you really catch a closed eye at 5 o'clock to wake up by 9 to get ready to get to the job by 11? That is kind of very complicated and complex for someone who runs that kind of shift. All shifts are made for everyone, and we're all in the shifts. Sometimes we have to be forced into certain shifts, but working in the medical field, when you're a student, they rotate you through everything, and that way you get a taste of everything. So I knew I was only good for 7 to 5 or 7 to 4, whatever those hours are, but just understanding, again, all these fluctuations, all these different things that can really show up and cost more. Ever since now that people are staying home on that other level of the way the jobs have turned and, you're working from home, they have a better vision for being presenteeism, because they could actually have a moment to be sick because they're at home and they have, a moment to go lay down or recover with themselves if they needed that. So on that aspect, that's looking pretty good for this situation, but a lot of jobs are asking people to come back to the job. So that aspect, that's where we come back to the real presenteeism, where you really have to come in, be there, and, be dressed, be presentable, and be ready to work. And then you're working thinking, oh my gosh, why did I even come in? Because that's just the way it is. But I really appreciate you joining me on this episode. As we leave this episode, I do want to bring up next one. We're going to start talking about the new vision, the dreams, and what are we lacking? Do we have one? Women in the workplace. I mean, we all start out with dreams. I mean, we grow up, we want something next in line for our lives, hopefully, and maybe it's not even in the plans. And now with this next episode, I'll be talking about, we're going to see how you can start planning to make sure that either you awaken that old dream that you had and try to nurture it to be ready for you when you're ready to grab onto it and live that vision. I'm looking forward to that next episode here at Liberating Menopause. Thank you so much for today's moment with you. And don't forget, try to get that rest and, do your best. Do your best, because that's all we can do. It is a crazy lifestyle today, and it's really reorganizing that. Have a great week. Thank you, prconnectionsradio.com. From Liberating Menopause, Lisa Vasquez. Looking forward to talking to you next time. Bye, everyone.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.